Hey guys, this is C and welcome back to another one of my reviews for The Chi. And today we're going to talk about season 3, episode 9, Lacking. Let's go ahead and get into this episode. All right, y'all. So the episode starts with Keisha. She's asleep and you could tell she's in some sort of dream sequence, and she's having another nightmare about her experience with the kidnapper. And so she screams, and Kevin hears her, and he kind of busts in the room to see if she's okay. And before that, though, she jumps up and she gets her phone and she turns to like some sort of like breathing exercise. And I don't know if this was from therapy or whatever, but she hears it and she's kind of, working on her breathing, and Kevin comes in and she turns it off, and, she hurries up and flips her phone down, and she tells him to get out, and he's like, I heard you screaming, and she's like, okay, well, get out. And he's trying to make sure that she's not still upset with him, and so, she then tells him to get the F out or whatever, and so he gets out. And then they show Nina and Dre. They're kind of walking along the beach, and it's got to be cold because you see a little, snow outside, and you can tell that it's cold. And I know that Chicago winters are brutal just from having visited before in the wintertime, and by them being on the water, I know it makes it extremely cold there in the winter. But Nina and Dre are walking with some sort of group, and I don't know if this is like a couples therapy group or some sort of therapy period, but they're walking and they're kind of walking along and doing, as what Kevin says, white people shit. They kind of joke about that, and they're kind of, in a better place. And the two of them are making progress. And that's kind of good to see, because I am really, really rooting for Nina and Dre to make it in spite of all the obstacles that they're experiencing. And they haven't even been married a year yet, and they have gone through a lot. So I really, really, really am rooting for them to be happy and to make it. Then we go to Sonny's, which has now been taken over by Dom and Emmett, and they're kind of cleaning and preparing to get it ready for their grand opening. And so Emmett's under the table kind of scraping gum from underneath the table, and he glances over and he sees Dom wiping down the display by the register, and I mean, he's just looking at her booty and is just kind of zoning out. And Tiffany kind of gets him back to reality, and she asks him, what were you thinking about or whatever, and he's just like, man, nothing, I'm trying to figure out a name for the restaurant. And so Dom kind of says, well, let me know if you need some inspiration. And so Tiffany kind of looks over like what was that about? And then so does Jada, but nobody really addresses it, and Emmett's kind of sitting there looking dumb. So I'm really, really, really curious to see when this information is going to come out, because a lot of stuff kind of happened during the episode that is really going to lead to a big blow up when it does come out. So now we're at the church where Ronnie is being honored for his heroism, for saving Keisha from her kidnapper. So there's like a church full of people there to celebrate him, and he's standing up front with the pastor, and the pastor is saying, these kind words to him. And then he lets him know that, you know, there are some people there who would like to sort of honor him. So a woman presents him with money, sort of a reward for finding Keisha. And then you have Otis and Rosalind there, who also wanted to give him a donation or a reward of $5,000. So he's kind of taken aback by that. And Rose kind of uses this opportunity to talk, whereas Doodah, I guess, thought he was going to be able to get a few words in to talk about his campaign and his run for mayor, but Rose takes over the conversation. Every time he tried to talk, she cut him off. And then it got to the point where, you know, I guess talking time was over and they had to move on to the song. You know, the pastor comes in and tells them that now, you know, they're going to move to this selection of music. And so Doodah's kind of looking like, well, I'll be damned, you know, but he doesn't say anything. And then the episode moves back to Emmett. You know, he's sitting at the table and he's trying to really come up with the name. And so Tiffany's there and, you know, she joins him at the table and he kind of, you know, tells her these names that he's come up with, and she was like, no, all of those kind of sound like some, you know, bad porn names or whatever. And so he's like, well, you know, what do you think I should name it? And she was like, I don't know. It's not my restaurant, it's yours. You know, you need to do it. You know, you need to come up with a name. I can't help you. And so at this point, he's feeling, you know, some kind of way or overcome with emotion, and he just kind of tells her, you know, he thanks her and tells her that he couldn't have done it without her, that she's, you know, stuck by him, you know, this whole time, and he, you know, thanks her for her loyalty. And so she's like, you know, yeah, I did, you know, yeah, you better thank me. But I think that, you know, that made her feel really good that he really expressed himself, and you can tell that it came from a genuine place at that time. So again, we're gonna have to see what unfolds once she does find out, because I know she will find out about him and Dom, and they keep making a big deal about it. So I'm definitely thinking that she will, and maybe before the finale, but we'll just have to wait and see. But right now, you know, he's feeling like, okay, that happened, it won't happen again. I'm with my girl. You know, this is who I'm gonna be with. I love her, and he just wanted her to know that. So next we see Keisha, and you know, she's preparing to go out. She's going out, and Kevin is with her, and she tells Kevin, you know, I don't need you to go with me. And he's like, yes, you do. She's like, you know, I'm not gonna get kidnapped again. And he's kind of like, well, we don't know that, and you need somebody with you to protect you. So he kind of feels like he needs to go, you know, with her as she goes out. And she's like, okay, well, I guess she was on her way to the drugstore, and she goes to the store. But before they get there, she's walking and she hears some man like cat call, and it like shakes her up a little bit, and she zones back out into her, you know, traumatic situation, and she's hearing all these, you know, scenes in her mind or in her head, these voices from the kidnapper. And so she's, you know, just zoned out again, and she does this several times throughout the episode. And I guess that's just part of, you know, her trauma, or her PTSD or whatever it is that she's, you know, dealing with. And so she snaps out of it, and they go to the drugstore. And so she tells him, you know, well, can I buy tampons by myself? You know, she wants him to get away, but it turns out that she really went and bought a pregnancy test. So we're gonna see how that goes. But she also takes a second to confront him because she does feel like it was really messed up what he said to her, basically implying that it was her fault that she was kidnapped. And he tells her that he didn't mean it, but she's kind of like, yeah, right, you meant what you said. And so she expressed to him how that hurt her, but Kevin feels like it was just kind of something he said in the heat of the moment, because emotions were pretty high that day and everybody was, on 10 in some form or fashion. But, he did let her know that he didn't mean it. But in the back of Keisha's mind, Keisha's like, yeah, you meant it. And so they've wrapped up at Ronnie's celebration, and Otis takes this opportunity to do a little more campaigning, and this time he's hoping to have a little more of a voice. And so he does begin to speak about potholes, or fixing the potholes in the city. And Rosalind, she goes and she sprinkles a little extra on it, and she even goes as far as talking about reparations for Black people. And Otis is kind of like, what the hell are you talking about? Reparations for Black people. When white voters hear that, they're going to freak the F out. And so she's like, well, it sounds a lot better than talking about some potholes. And so he was like, we need to stick to the script. And she was like, I wrote the script. And so I'm thinking, like, now he feels like Rose is trying to get the shine, but it's not her campaign, it's his campaign. But she does need to be his mouthpiece, because you're a gangster from the streets, and she seems to be the brains behind this operation. And I really think that he should have let her drive this campaign, rather than and just kind of be the face instead of trying to be the mouth and the face, because obviously he can't do both. And we then see a really, really weird part, because we see the preacher. He comes to him and he is kind of implying that he has now changed his support from Camille to Duda. And he then brings up wanting to meet with somebody named Angela again, because she was very educational or some shit. And so the way he said it, and and Duda was like, yeah, Angela is a wonderful teacher. And so I'm just kind of like, first off, who the fuck is Angela? And what the hell was she teaching them? I'm kind of curious to know. If I missed who Angela is, or if y'all know who Angela is, drop down in the comments and let me know, because that may be a part that I completely missed. But I wasn't sure who she was, but Pastor want to see her again. And I'm like, okay, is this some kind of prostitution going on? But I don't know. Y'all let me know if it's something I missed. And then they pan over to Papa, who's talking to Ronnie, and he's kind of asking Ronnie, well, what are you going to do with all that money? And so Ronnie's like, well, I'm leaving town. I'm gonna go to Springfield. And so he was like, Papa was kind of like, Springfield, what's in Springfield? And he tells him, he has some friends there, which we saw in a few episodes before, when his friends were leaving, that they invited him to come along because, he has family there with job connections. And so they were going to go get jobs. So now, Ronnie, now that he's feeling accomplished and he, likes this road that he's on, he's just going to leave the city and he's going to go to Springfield for work. So now at this point, everybody is leaving the event, and you see Duda and Rose, and they're kind of walking, and so they're having a bit of a spat. you know, Duda is basically telling her, you know, I'm the one running for mayor, not you. And he tells her literally to take your ass home. And so the look on Candy's face when he told her that, I knew some shit was gonna pop off because she had that look like, oh, for real? Mm-hmm. Yeah, I got your ass. So, you know, that was the look that she gave. So I was sitting there like, yeah, I know that look because I done gave it a couple of times, but we're gonna see what she does later on in the episode. Ronnie is met by his ex at the door. You know, she said the collection plate was coming around a little too much, so she had to get on out. As we like to do at church services, I've been at services where the collection plate has gone around at least 3 times, and if they didn't hit a certain amount, they were gonna send it around a fourth and fifth time. But you know, that's how we get down in the black church. But you know, so they kind of laugh and joke about that, and she tells him that she's really gonna miss him, you know, when he goes out of town, and that she would like for him to be able to see his granddaughter before he leaves. And so he would like that very, very, very much, considering that he obviously has not been a part of her life these past, you know, few years, being on the streets, drinking, or whatever. And he tells her that he was gonna go and sprinkle his grandma's ashes, and he wanted to know if she would join him. And she's kind of apprehensive because she didn't have a very good relationship with Miss Ethel. So she didn't really understand why he wanted her to be there. But I think more than anything, Ronnie just needed somebody to be there for him for kind of moral support as he, you know, got rid of her ashes, never to see him again. So she agrees to do it, and they kind of walk away. So Jake and Trig are in the house, and they hear Trig's car alarm go off, and so they rush out to see what it was, and they see that his car door is open and a boy is running down the street. And so Trig comes out with his gun drawn, and the guy, I mean, was out. Like, he was running so fast he didn't have a chance to catch him. And so he's like, man, damn crackheads or something. And so Jake's like, crackhead, man, that's not a crackhead, that's so and so. He knew the guy, but he knew that, you know, he was a young kid and he wasn't a crackhead. So they open up the door to kind of look inside, and they discover, you know, Jake's like, well, he didn't take anything. But Trig, you know, looks inside the car, and he's like, well, he left something, and he pulls out a big bag of drugs. So I'm thinking that that was something that was intended to be a setup, but his car alarm, you know, kind of dampened those plans. I'm thinking that maybe Duda or somebody had this boy put that stuff in Trig's car, and they were going to try and get him pulled over and arrested so he could kind of stop this nonsense about getting Jake back. So here he's looking, they're like, okay. So Jake's like, all right, man. He was like, I got a plan, I got an idea. And now we get to the part where Ronnie says goodbye to Grandma. He takes her ashes, and he's accompanied by his ex, and they go to like a pond or something, and he takes him, and he's kind of, you know, getting ready to say goodbye to the woman who he says is the only person who ever really loved him, and that nobody would ever love him the way that she did, and that he hopes that he makes her proud. And he takes her ashes and he kind of sprinkles them along the water, and he officially says goodbye to Grandma. He was, you know, sad and tearful, you know, from saying goodbye, because I mean, anybody that knows Ronnie, it was always about grandma, 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 grandma. And so now that she's gone, you know, that's really more motivation for him to leave Chicago because he feels like, he doesn't have anything left there in the city. Now, next we start this scene with Keisha in the bathroom, and you can see, she's looking down at the floor, and she's got instructions on the floor as she's sitting on the toilet peeing, and she has a stick in her hand, which is a pregnancy test. So she didn't get tampons, and she told Kevin, and we all pretty much assumed. And so she pees on the stick, and by this time, Nina and Dre have returned from their retreat or their outing, and so they come in and they ask, Kevin, where's Keisha? And he's like, in the bathroom. And they're like, is she okay? And they're like, how is she? And he was like, the same. So she is in the bathroom, and so she looks at the stick, and she comes out, pretty devastated. And so they're sitting there, Dre and Nina. Oh, Kevin had left. He went to help Emmett, and he tells his mom he's going to help. He didn't ask her if he could go. And so, she's kind of in her feelings. She's like, I don't know what's up with him, but, he calls himself telling me what he's going to do instead of asking me. And so Dre is like, well, he's getting into that managed stage, and, we just got to kind of work with him or whatever. But Nina feels like she is slowly losing control over Kevin, especially after last week's episode where he just really went off on her before he realized that he brought it back in, but he went off on his mom. So with that being said, he was gone, and Keisha comes out of the bathroom, and I am just so glad that she did tell her parents, and she did not, keep it to herself or try to handle this situation herself. She comes out, and they're kind of like, what's wrong, And then her mom sees the pregnancy test in her hand, and it's just like, oh my God. So we go over to Duda's place, where you see Jake in the closet, punching numbers, trying to figure out the combination to this safe. And he's trying combinations, but, to no avail. And so Rose comes around the corner like, how are you going to break into a safe without the combination? And so Jake's kind of like, oh shit, what's going to happen? What? And so she tells him, 11/27/46, and she walks away. So he's just kind of stunned, like, what was that about? But he opens the safe, grabs what he needs to grab, and he leaves. Now, going back to what I said earlier, when Duda kind of went off on her, kind of letting her know that, this was his show and not hers, basically, telling her that, she wasn't really a part of the team. She at that point probably just said F it and gave Jake the information he needed to do with whatever, he wanted to do with it. So I knew when she had that look, with that look on her face, I knew, she was going to be with the shit after that. So then we go back to Keisha, who is just like, well, what do I need to do to get rid of this? Because I cannot, I can't keep, this baby. How soon can we take care of this? So she's planning to terminate this pregnancy, and, her mom is willing to do whatever, she has to help her daughter. So they're making plans for Keisha not to keep her, rapist or her kidnapper's child. So Emmett is sitting in the chair, and he's watching Tiffany and their son asleep on the floor while you hear Smokey Robinson's being with you, playing in the background. And he, again, is just sitting there pondering and thinking. And he jumps up and we see him go to a pawn shop. So he goes to the pawn shop and he's looking at rings, and he looks at this ring. And so he asked the woman, about that one. And so she's like, how much do you have? And he's like, well, I got $500. And she was like, what else you got? She was like, I'll take that and that watch, and you can have the ring. And he was like, man, I can't give you this watch. He was like, my cousin gave me this watch, and he died. And she like, you think I give a fuck about that? You think I give a damn? I mean, it's a pawn shop. They don't care what emotional ties you have to any merchandise you bring in there or that you want to get. Just give it up. If you want this ring, you're going to have to give me that watch and the $500. So he does that. He gets the ring, and he uses the opportunity at the grand opening to propose to Tiffany. And when he does that, everybody's just kind of clapping. They're clapping, and they see, the name, Smokey's. Sorry, I forgot a really, really, really good part. Tiffany and Dom were there at the restaurant, and they're finishing up a few things before the restaurant opens. And so, Dom's kind of having small talk with Tiffany, and Tiffany's kind of like, I know he get on your nerves, and she was like, yeah, but I'm sure not as much as he gets on yours. And so she, to me, and maybe I'm wrong and y'all tell me if I am, but I felt like Dom was trying to be messy, and she was trying to imply some things, or at least plant some seeds in Tiffany's mind about her and Emmett, but without outright saying it, because I don't think she's crazy enough to just blatantly mess up the business. But a woman in her feelings, not necessarily scorned because she knew what it was, but a woman in her feelings, there's no telling what limits that she'll go to. So that was when he pulled them outside to show them the name of the restaurant. And so they're thinking that it was from Smokey from Friday. And he was like, no, the singer. And so they're like, the light-skinned dude with the good hair? And they're like, oh, okay, I know who he is too. Okay, that's nice. And so they like the name Smokey's, because it's a barbecue restaurant. So it's pretty fitting. But I said that to go back to the grand opening. They're about to cut the large ribbon in the front, and he proposes to Tiffany, who says yes. And everybody's clapping, and they're excited about the engagement. And you can see this look on Dom's face. She's kind of like, fake happy or whatnot. And you can tell she was in her feelings about him proposing to Tiffany. But the whole entire episode, he's asked her, are you straight? Are you okay? And she's lying and saying, yeah, but obviously, she's pressed about something, and I got a feeling that it's going to come out in the future. Now, at the grand opening, it's packed. They got a lot of people there, and, they're telling people to put it on their social media so people can show up, more people can show up, and they want, Oprah to see it so she could put it on her favorite things, and then they'll really blow up then. So they're there. Emmett's family is there. Even his dad shows up, who is just like an asshole. Like, he is just being like the ultimate ass. And he's criticizing Tiffany's ring. He's like, oh, it looks like a pawn shop ring. And then he tells Jada, because Jada makes mention to him that, you are late and you missed your son's engagement. You know, your son proposed to Tiffany. And so he's like, who, the Scorpio? And Jada's like, I don't know her sign. And so he's like, she was cheating on him anyway. And she was like, well, she's not the one that's cheating. And so he goes, well, she wasn't taking care of her wifely duties. You know, you can see where Emmett's whorish ways come from, because his dad obviously doesn't take much accountability for his own actions, and then he makes excuses as to why, you know, Emmett is out being a hoe as well. So they go, and again, you know, he's talking about her ring, just being like real negative. And you got a lot of people there. Lil Rel is there. Of course, he's the landlord, and he invited, you know, G Herbo, I think that's how you say his name, and his crew. And Emmett's like, you know, they're eating like it's their last meal, you know, but they also said that you told them it was on the house. And so he was like, yeah, it is on the house. Because, you know, do you know the exposure that you will get with somebody like that coming here? And so he's like, man, we're about to run out of food. You know, Emmett's worried because, you know, I mean, they eating up a storm. Obviously, you know, athlete and whoever else is with him. And, you know, they are just eating like it's no tomorrow. Is he an athlete? I don't really know who G Herbo is, so y'all gotta excuse me. But he goes over to the table, and it seemed like at first Emmett was gonna tell them, hey, you know, either they gotta stop eating or they gotta pay. But he then just says, you know, I was, you know, I'm a fan, and I've been a fan ever since something, and I just want to know if I could get a selfie with you. So he takes the selfie and he walks away. And we then go over to Jake and Trig, who show up to Camille's, you know, election headquarters. So they're met by her campaign manager at the door, who's kind of like, can I help you? And they're like, we're here to see her. And so he was like, well, whatever it is, you know, you can let me know, you know, what it is. She's busy. And so they're like, we got something for her. And it's an envelope. And so he was like, well, give it to me. I'll make sure that she gets it. And so he opens it up and he looks at it. And whatever information is there, you know, the campaign manager feels like, you know, they must want some money for it, because it's, I guess it's that good or that incriminating. And so he's like, well, how much do we owe you for this? And Trig's like, consider it a gift. And so the campaign manager is kind of like, well, you know, damn, you know, this must be something really personal that you'll hand over this information at no cost, because everybody knows, you know, with politics, somebody's palm is always getting greased in some way, but he didn't want anything for it. So, you know, they thank him and he leaves. And then back at Keisha's house, you know, she's in her room and she's on her laptop, and her mom comes in, and her mom catches her researching, you know, what to expect your first few weeks of pregnancy. And so, you know, she kind of hurries and closes down the laptop, and her mom's like, you know, you're not having a change of heart, are you? And she's kind of like, no, you know, I just want to know, you know, I'm curious about it. I just kind of want to know what to expect. And so her mom's like, well, you know, you don't need to worry about that. You know, you probably just need to go and lay down. So Keisha goes and she lays down, or I don't know what she does, but her mom suggests that she goes and lays down, because I'm thinking that now, you know, there's no way that they would want to raise this child being reminded, you know, daily of the, you know, the hard time that Keisha, you know, dealt with in this ordeal, being kidnapped, beaten, raped. So everybody there, I'm sure, is thinking the most logical thing is to go ahead and, you know, terminate it. And then we get this really cute scene, you know, where Papa and Kevin come up with this idea because Kevin really is missing Gemma and he wants to see her. And so they're trying to figure out a way. And she tells him, earlier to stop texting me because my dad checks my texts. So, kind of, leave me alone. So he's trying to figure out a way to talk to her where her dad won't see it. And so they come up with this really, really cute idea where Papa, they form I Miss You on one of the restaurant tables outside of Smokey's with, the plastic, knives and forks and spoons. And it was really, really cute. And so they posted to Kevin's Instagram and Gemma liked the picture. So Papa's like, now you can slide into her DMs. Her dad doesn't check her DMs. And so he was like, that's a good idea. That's a good idea. So they're doing all of this. And then you have Emmett walking around. He's working the crowd. He's telling people, you got to mix the greens and the yams together, and he's just kind of, working the room, working the crowd outside and, taking it all in that, this is his grand opening. And so we see Ronnie getting ready to leave and he's walking with his ex. And I'm sorry I keep saying his ex because I forget her name and y'all can tell me what her name is in the comments. I have forgotten it. I have drawn completely blank. And so they're, getting rid of their trash and they're leaving and they're walking. And behind them, you see this guy and he has his head down and he's got like the brim of the hat is covering his head so you can't really see him. And then the next thing you know, you hear like 2 shots and you see him like, hit Ronnie and he just falls forward and the girl is screaming and, the restaurant just kind of clears out. Everybody, runs and you hear the guy say, "That's for Coogie, motherfucker," and he kills him. And Ronnie's laying there in a pool of blood, dead. Now, I could tell that it was just way, way, way too much redemption happening. And a part of me knew that something would happen to Ronnie, but I didn't think it would happen now. I wasn't expecting him to die, especially not this episode. I knew something would happen, but I thought it was going to be, he was just going to leave. He was just going to, ride out into the sunset and he was going to leave. But I wasn't expecting for him to die. And it kind of, he went out on a high note because he did a lot of good this season. He knew he needed to make some kind of change. And he did. And he was continuing to make a change. But he had to pay, pay the piper for his past sin. But again, I was shocked. I was not expecting that to happen. And as far as the money, I didn't mention earlier, he did get a chance to see his granddaughter. And before they came to the restaurant, he got a chance to see her. And he was saying how smart she was. And the mom was like, thank you. I'm trying to get her into this gifted program. I'm going to take a loan out. And I'm going to, get her into this program. And so he gives her a check and she was kind of, taken aback a little bit. And he was just like, I don't want you to have to do that. This is the least I can do. He hadn't been a part of her life since she was born. And that was his way of, I guess, trying to, begin to make amends for that. And so the mom was really grateful. And so she would be sending her daughter to some sort of, gifted school with that money. But Ronnie is no longer with us. He is gone. And It sucks, but because he was such a major part of this show, it's interesting to see, how the show would go on without him. And I know I left out a few things, but this episode had so much to happen that if I gave y'all a play-by-play, we would be here for an hour. But if I left out any important stuff, definitely leave it in the comments. Don't forget to like this video again and subscribe to my channel so that you can be here when I put out more content. I thank everybody, for watching, taking the time out of your day, whether you're on your way to work, whether you are just at home chilling or on your lunch break, whatever. I do thank you so much for watching my videos. I hope you enjoy them. There will be many more to come if God is willing. And again, y'all have a wonderful rest of your weekend, and I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.